Ladies and gentlemen, please notice that exits are conveniently located at the front and rear of this auditorium. When leaving the theater, we suggest that the exit at the front of the auditorium will allow you easier access to the parking areas. Thank you.
Oh my God, that's gross. Corey Feldman does not know how to eat a freaking pizza.
Completely changed the face of everything.
It's very unique. I will give it that.
Oh, thanks. I don't want to embarrass myself.
Should I embarrass myself?
No, that's please no. Oh, shut up. Shut up.
I am embarrassed. Hello, I'm Mike Butler.
And I'm Mike Field.
And you're listening to the Forgotten Cinema Podcast. Each episode, we highlight a film that, for a variety of reasons, was forgotten by audiences, whether it was because of a more popular movie was released at the same time, or the movie simply didn't catch on with an audience in its initial run. We'll discuss what we love about the movie, or maybe what we don't love about it, and decide whether the movie's worth a revisit. If you enjoy our podcast, please feel free to rate, review, and subscribe on iTunes or wherever you're listening to this podcast. Right.
Should we introduce ourselves real quick?
Sure.
Okay, so I'm Mike Field. I write, I direct, I write some more. I've got books out. I've done some movies. I'm also a movie theater manager where I cater to the public's every whim with my good friend, Mr. Mike Butler, right here.
Yeah. But I'm also an actor who has performed in a variety of different mediums. And I write, scripts that I never get a chance to film. I'm also a podcaster.
I think more importantly is we both really love movies. We both like talking about movies.
Absolutely.
In fact, I think I remember there was one time in the office when we were just going back and forth with movies, and I don't know whatever the manager was there, and she was like, "Wait, I don't understand what you're talking about." And like we were riffing back and forth on different films, and we were like, "Yeah, that's right."
Get on our level.
I mean, it's not a high level, but there is a level there.
Yes.
All right, so now you know about us. I guess we can go in what we're going to talk about because this was my pick this week.
Yeah, why don't you introduce
Listen, I am not embarrassed that we are doing this movie this week. I know you are.
I'm not embarrassed.
We are doing the 1991 flop, Hudson Hawk.
Yes, we are.
Oh, shut up. Shut up.
I am embarrassed. I lied.
If I had to sit through the one that no one will ever hear, Sphere, that we practiced on, I had to sit through that.
This is better than this.
Oh, okay. Time out. Before we get going, not that there's any kind of major plot points you're going to miss here, but if you have not seen Hudson Hawk, I mean, maybe you should continue to listen because I could maybe talk you into it. But if you just want to watch it before we talk about it, you probably should go do that right now.
Yeah, it's not a huge spoiler movie.
It's not long.
Yeah, that's one safe.
It's not long.
It's not.
But I reckon if you would rather know what we're talking about, go watch the movie, then come back to the podcast. But if you want us to talk about it and get yourself all geared up for it, then please, by all means, listen.
All right. So, sell me on Hudson Hawk.
I'm not going to sell you on Hudson Hawk. Well, so can you break down the plot, or do you want me to? There's not a hard, I know there's not a lot of plot.
How about you break down the plot?
Okay, so it's real simple. So Bruce Willis is the star of this movie, which we'll get into a little later. He plays Hudson Hawk, the title character, who is a cat burglar, who starts off where he is in prison for a crime he did. I think he's been in prison for 10 years. Mm-hmm. He gets out. He immediately gets forced into a job to rob this famous horse sculpture made by Leonardo da Vinci. Da Vinci is prominent in this. Well, in terms of just they're going after a lot of the artifacts. So he goes to break in, steals this horse. What you find out is the horse inside the horse has this like crystal. It's one of three, I guess, star crystals. They look more like metal, but it's supposed to be like a crystal. And then it's basically like he was brought onto the job by this corrupt cop who has ties to this mob family who is working for this CIA group who is actually working for these billionaires, or I guess it's 1991, so millionaires.
No, they call themselves
Do they
billionaires.
call themselves?
Yeah.
Okay, so billionaires who are basically the beginning of the movie starts off where Da Vinci has created this machine that turns lead into gold, and they talk about it a little bit in the movie. Lead and gold are almost identical except for one element, one proton. And they talk about it in the movie. So everyone's always tried to turn lead into gold from far back. It's alchemy. It's all part of being an alchemist. Da Vinci created this machine. He realized that it was not good. Breaks the crystal, this giant crystal, up into three pieces. Hides it in all three different things that he has created, and he spreads it across the globe. Back where we are, Hudson Hawk steals the first one, and they basically con him or bribe him or extort him into stealing the other two. Put stuff together. He's got to stop the day and all that stuff. I mean, there is no plot. I mean, there's a plot, but it is not. That is not why you watch this movie. So that's basically the plot of the movie, kind of, sort of.
Sure.
Listen, if you're going to come at this with a negative attitude,
Listen, I have positive things to say about this movie.
Well,
it's not all negative.
Well, let me break down some of the facts that we like to do.
Yeah.
So this movie was released on May 24th, 1991, which I didn't go check, but I'm pretty sure that's Memorial Day weekend. Back in the early 90s, late 80s, maybe 80s, the summer always started for movies on Memorial Day weekend. That's when all your big movies came out. Then, as the 90s progressed, the weeks kept going earlier and earlier. Then it became the first week in May. I remember specifically, like, the first Mission Impossible was the first week in May. And that was 90-something, right? 96?
96. I think it's 96.
Now you've got this year where you have Avengers Endgame, and that is the last week in April. So it used to be the Memorial Day weekend kicked off summer movies, basically. Yep. So this year, in 1991, Hudson Hawk was a part of that, along with it opened against Backdraft, Thelma and Louise, Only the Lonely, which is John Candy and Ali Sheedy. It was like a romantic comedy. That's not the heavyweight that Backdraft and Thelma and Louise were. No. And then Drop Dead Fred, which is not good. That's with Phoebe Cates. Her imaginary friend or something.
I might have seen
it's
that
not good. Don't bother. I don't even know if Thelma and Louise, when it came out, was like, I don't think it was a movie that people were like, oh, I can't wait to see this movie. I think it came out and people loved it, and it just grew and grew and
Word
grew.
of mouth.
I mean, Backdraft was a popular movie because it's Ron Howard and Kurt Russell, and it's a really good movie. Yeah. So basically, my point is that Hudson Hawk opened on a big weekend. Directed by Michael Lehman, who did Heathers, the original Heathers, not the remake they did on CW. No. Pop Sugar.
Something.
Freeform.
I don't think it's Freeform. We shouldn't be talking about this.
Written by Steven D'Souza, who did Die Hard and Commando, and I assume he came onto the project because Bruce Willis asked him to. And also written by Daniel Waters, who did Heathers and Demolition Man.
I love Demolition Man.
But I'm sure he was.
List.
What's up?
That's a good one for the list.
That's not forgotten.
That's true. That's so good, though.
He doesn't know about the three shells. So I'm sure that he was brought on by Lehman because they have the Heathers connection. I said starring Bruce Willis, Danny Aiello, Andy McDowell, James Coburn, who I actually forgot he was in this, Richard E. Grant, Sandra Bernhard, and David Caruso, just the names that you would recognize, a young David Caruso.
Very young.
So this story of Hudson Hawk was actually the story is from Bruce Willis and his producing partner, Robert Kraft, not the owner of the New England Patriots, but a different Robert Kraft. So it has $65 million budget, and it grossed, get ready, total $17 million. So this is, by all intents and purposes, a flop. Although I did watch there was on the DVD that I have. It's not I know they have a Blu-ray edition. They got rid of all the special features, but the DVD I had, one of the special features was they actually have a sit down back in 2005 with Willis and Kraft, and they're actually talking about the movie. And in that, Willis says that the movie's made his money back and more because it became a cult classic, DVD release, and all that stuff. So I mean, I couldn't find that anywhere. I would take his word. But so I guess they did kind of recoup that money, and I mean in some way, because I don't know if Willis was a producer. I think he was, but I know obviously Kraft was.
He was. I think he's listed at the titles.
So there's some of the facts. But I know that Mike did not like this movie. I know he wouldn't like this movie because not because I suggested it. Because I know he never really liked it to begin with. But that's fine because that's what this is about. This is about, some of these movies we're not going to like again. That we remember them as we remember them fondly. Like I remember the episode that we did that we talked about Collateral. You love that movie because I think that came during your formative time as being whether you wanted to be a filmmaker or an actor. Right, yeah. Right. We all have that. So I can understand why sometimes, some movies strike with us at a certain period in life. Okay. So I know you didn't like this, and that's fine. Mm-hmm. I'm here to shoot all that down.
Well, no. I know. While I was watching, I was thinking, how old were you when this came out? You were probably, what, like early teens?
No. I take it back. Yeah, I was. Well, it came back in 91. I want to say I didn't see it in the theater.
Okay.
So I can't. So when this came out, I was 16. I didn't start working at the theater until 93. So I probably I think I watched this with my friend Adrian. I don't remember, but because we both loved it, and we both still love it. Because I told him the other day that we were doing this.
Yeah, I was there, and he was really excited.
He was excited. That's why he's my friend. I always joke with him that when I'll put a random quote on Facebook sometimes, and he's the only one that replies back to me, and it's like I knew that he would because he knows what I'm talking about, which is makes me cry. But so I don't know when I probably watched this. I would say like 18, 19, 20. Okay. I probably did. It was probably one of those movies that we rented when they had video stores, which is so that's probably how I remember watching it because I didn't see it in the theater. So I was young, but. And, go ahead. You tell me. Give me something well, first, before we do that, when I started watching it, I was like, okay, am I going to... I kind of knew I was going to like the stuff I liked. I love the songs. I love when they're singing. I love the goofiness. I love some of the dialogue. There was, like, when it first started and they have the guy doing the narration, and it was like a fairy tale kind of thing.
Yeah.
And then as progressively as it went, I was like, this movie's not meant to be taken seriously. This movie's not, if movies are not meant to be taken seriously, that doesn't mean, okay, forget it, turn off my brain. It's a certain style.
Right.
So, where he starts off with the narration, all that stuff, I think going into it, I was like, okay, because I didn't really remember that too much. I remember it's zany, but I didn't really remember, like, it was goofy and zany and out of bounds on purpose. And my thing is that if you're willing to understand that in Austin Powers movies, you can't really have that same argument against something like Hudson Hawk because I'm not saying they're on the same level.
Okay.
Because I see you shaking your head.
I have a... Go ahead.
But you know what I mean? I'm saying that it's the same, I guess, pseudo-genre. You know what I mean? Like comedy, but... surreal comedy.
Right, okay. I think it doesn't go far enough, which is one of my notes when I was watching. I was like, if this really wanted to be that kind of zany, because at some points it really goes Naked Gun zany, but it never goes far enough to become that. Or even Austin Powers kind of comedy slapstick. It never chooses which comedy, which, I mean, it's very unique. I will give it that.
Oh, thanks, man.
But... it never really firmly establishes, yes, we're going to be Naked Gun zany the whole way through.
I agree with that. That's very fair.
Which is why there's parts I like and parts I don't like, because it's very much like it doesn't know, trying to figure out what it wants to be.
Right. I think that's actually one of my, I don't want to say dislikes, but one of my things is that, that it's not, some of the jokes aren't really either thought out or they fall flat. Or it was just like, well, how about we do this? Which I know that because in reading everything about this movie, like it was a mess putting it together. Like I know that they had issues with just kind of like always rewriting stuff, changing stuff. I know it was like, because it's Bruce Willis's story. The whole thing came from the fact that Willis and Kraft met like at a. Did you hear about this? How they met? So
No.
Okay, so the producer Robert Kraft is a musician. And he was performing on stage, and like this is obviously, I want to say, early '80s. I'm trying to remember when Moonlighting was a hit. because it was before Moonlighting, or it was around that time. So it's 80s. It might be even.
Well, he wasn't even
late
featured
70s.
on anything until Miami Vice, so it would have to be 80s.
Yeah, I'm talking about Willis.
Right.
Yeah.
I think Miami Vice was his first.
Yeah. So he was. This is when like they were like, you know, real young, trying to get things going. So I want to say it's early 80s, late 70s, but regardless, he's on stage performing Robert Kraft, and Willis is in the audience, and Willis just busts out. You're not supposed to do this. Busts out his harmonica and starts playing along with the band. So the guy's like, I guess he's looking at them. He's like, listen, either go or come on up here and play. And Willis, he didn't think he would come up, and Willis came up and played with him. So I guess they became friends after that, and they kind of this guy came up with this Hudson Hawk riff, and Willis they would play with it and work around with it, and so it became a song. And then eventually, as they both kind of went on certain career paths, obviously Wilson, Moonlighting, and then Die Hard and Kraft. It said that he produced Little Mermaid, but yeah. So then he went on, and then they finally came together to do this, because this is after Die Hard 2. So this is when he's huge.
Yeah. Well, you can't get a movie like this made without having done some stuff.
No, and I think some of the vitriol and vile that has spewed his way after this movie. I think Willis took it as, you know, like it was just my time, which I get. I mean, but still, it's not. I am willing to admit that this movie is not for a lot of people. It's not. And even as I watched it and I rewatched it, and I still enjoy it, but I'm not gonna argue the point that I think this is like the best film that I've, you know. It's not up there. It's a fun time. There's jokes that are fun. There's one joke which we'll get into that I was like, why is that in there? And what is supposed to be funny about that? Like
I think I might know what you're talking about.
Yeah, we'll get to it. So, but I wanted to find out what you liked about it first before we rip it, because before you start ripping into it.
Okay.
I want to know what you maybe. How about this? Like, was there something that jumped out when you were watching that you didn't think you would like as much as you did?
All right. Well, here's the thing. I thought you watched it when it came out, so I thought you were kind of like early to mid-teens.
Relatively close,
so I probably watched it the same age as you, because it was high school, Comedy Central. I watched it there. Every time I'd come home, they'd always have, like, 2 o'clock after high school, they'd have, you know, a block of, like, a comedy movie play till 4 o'clock.
But
I'd usually probably watch that.
And that's edited for content, right?
They didn't edit much.
Because this is hard. This is not hard R. This is R.
Oh, they dropped, yeah, but it would just be like they just didn't say it. They would just drop the word.
Okay.
And I remember really not liking it. Like, really not liking it. Because I had been warned, because I grew up a huge Bruce Willis fan. And I had been warned by my parents, don't watch this movie. It's actually my father's least favorite movie of all time. So I had to watch it.
Oh, excellent.
And I'm watching it. I'm going, oh, my God. I should have listened to my parents. They're right. This is not good. So, and I watched it it's probably around the same age as you. So I was a little surprised about that. Watching it again this time, though, I did find stuff I liked about it. It wasn't the train wreck that I watched the last time. So it's not like this was a better, or the rewatch the second time, knowing the kind of movie it was definitely a little better.
I can understand your dad not liking it, because I know it was pitched or it was promoted as an action movie, and it's not. It's a comedy, and I think and coming off of Die Hard 2, after the huge success that Die Hard had,
yeah,
I think people are expecting the same type of movie. Okay, so what kind of specifically what jumped out that you enjoyed them, like you liked?
All right, so. Well, it starts off with the TriStar logo.
This is the last movie that TriStar did before Columbia bought them, before they merged.
Oh, really?
They actually joked that Hudson Hawk caused this to happen.
Killed the TriStar. So when it started, I was like, oh, at least I've got this. I do like a lot of the flashback, the Leonardo da Vinci stuff, the setup, I thought was pretty good. I don't know if I like the storybook opening, because they don't use it like midway, which I think they should, but...
Yeah.
I do like, and that guy, well, he's just a guy on a donkey.
I love, I just not just to cut in, but you keep going. But I love when Da Vinci's like finishing up the Mona Lisa, and she smiles. She's just like, ugh.
Yeah, he has the mouth. I have that down. Yeah, I love that part's great. I like the idea of Leonardo da Vinci being the MacGuffin, the kind of Indiana Jones type MacGuffin of the story. I actually think the device is interesting. That plot point, the dialogue is really good. The spoken word jokes really land for me. I liked a lot of that. I liked the the first heist in the museum is actually really good, where they're singing the song in time, because you listen to them just say song titles and then the times of the songs, and it's like, what are they doing?
Yeah.
Back the knife. 4 minutes, 17 seconds. I only have eyes for you. Well, Tommy, I didn't know you cared. 3 minutes, 22 seconds.
Xanadu.
Xanadu?
Xanadu.
4 minutes, 19 seconds.
Star Spangled Banner. Whitney Houston, Super Bowl 17.
7 minutes, 17 seconds.
You're full of shit.
And it turns out that's how they rob and steal and keep the time, which I thought was cool. So that whole thing was neat. I like the relationship between Aiello and Willis.
Yeah, they're good friends.
Their chemistry is fantastic.
Danny Aiello is great. I mean, Danny Aiello is. I mean, could you say he's underrated? Because people don't really.
I think comedy wise, he's underrated.
Like he's great in this movie. He's obviously great in Do the Right Thing, but he's good in The Professional.
Mm-hmm.
Everything. Danny Aiello is almost like, I want to say like a working man, but like kind of like he's in a movie. Movie's terrible. Aiello won't be terrible. Like he's good. Like he's that quality.
He's somebody you can put in there.
Right.
Yeah.
But them together, I think I had read that they had wanted to work together 4 or 5 years before this, so they were trying to find a project. So you could tell that they're really good friends in this.
Their chemistry, when the movie starts to really run off the rails toward that, I think the movie really loses it in that third act.
As most movies do.
Yeah, the end to ending, wrapping up your movie is tough.
Mm-hmm.
But I think their chemistry really holds that film together toward the end. When they storm the castle, when they get back together in Italy, it's like their scenes together are really good. And I think that really holds it up. I mean, the dialogue is just like when he gets shot out the ambulance at the beginning, Willis, after the museum robbery, and he's, "Hey, mister, you gonna die?" And the kids talk to him. "How's my driving? 1-800, I'm gonna fucking die." He's just going through. He throws the exact change, like he's pissed off there's the exact change. He throws it in.
Happy sailing, Hawk! Oh, no! How am I driving? 1-800, I'm gonna fucking die!
Like his comments about how ridiculous everything is, and just being able to comment on it in like almost a Looney Tunes style way, is great. That dialogue just really kept me going, even when the movie itself was like, meh.
Yeah.
At least the dialogue was really good.
Yeah. You like the Mario Brothers?
The Mario Brothers was really good. I liked What's Nintendo.
Yeah. Yep.
Now that you're born again, what do you want to do? Start your liberty, entertain some ladies, Broadway takes, seduce some women, play Nintendo, bone some chicks.
What's Nintendo?
The last line is awesome. I love the last line
Oh, the movie?
of the movie.
Oh.
The car goes over the edge.
Did you miss anything? You're supposed to be all crashed up at the bottom of the hill!
Airbags, can you fucking believe it?
You're supposed to be blown up into fiery chunks of flesh.
Sprinkler system set up in the back, can you fucking believe it?
Yeah! That's probably what happened!
And his line, "That's probably what happened." Like it's just like he's alive just because they wanted to keep him alive.
Yeah.
It's just like that. At least I left on a smile, which was good.
Yeah. Well, and to your point before about you wish that they had gone farther in terms of the comedy. I think that's those moments that you like. You want that throughout, and I get that.
Right.
And I do too. The dialogue is well done, and honestly, it's. At this, I mean, who knows how the dialogue came to be? I'm sure it was just kind of like they were improvising half the time and just kind of like going through stuff.
Right.
I forgot the stuff. So the candy bar, the CIA game,
yeah.
Snickers and Kit Kat, and so in the movie, if anyone hasn't seen it, James Coburn is like a CIA chief who you find out set up Hudson Hawk to be in jail for the last 10 years, which makes, honestly, that's no sense. Why have that in there?
Yeah.
Who cares? And when he comes off the ramp, and they're all punching him,
Yep.
and they're all hitting him. So basically they're all called by candy bar names: Almond Joy, Kit Kat, Butterfinger, and Snickers. And David Caruso plays Kit Kat, but I forgot that David Caruso was always like each scene he's like dressed as the character. Like I forgot that. So when they're in Italy and he's like behind him and he's like, "You tell him, you call it," he's behind him doing the thing. Yeah.
That was pretty good. He doesn't talk. He's always just got the labels.
Yeah, and then he's wearing the same dress as Annie McDowell. Yeah.
He just copies her. I like when he was a statue. I didn't rewind it, but I wanted to rewind it and go, was he the statue the whole time? Has he just been there?
He disappears for a while because they have, when Almond Joy and Snickers try to kill them and they end up killing themselves. He's not there, but Butterfinger's in that scene beforehand because they're watching the house.
Yeah,
Kit Kat's not even anywhere near that, and now we can get to the line that I was talking about.
Yeah.
They're in the car, and they basically go back to. I'm blanking on her name in the Annie McDowell's character's name in the movie. Hang on, let me find that because I don't like. Okay, so they're in the car and they're looking up at the apartment. They're back at Anna's place.
Yeah.
And this is after. It's not after he steals the Codex. It's after.
It's after he steals.
Well, no.
No.
After they fake the death, him and Ariel fake. Yes. Yeah. After he steals the Codex, he goes back to Anna's flat.
Right.
They're in the car watching the house, and they're like, "What's he waiting for? What's he waiting for?" Because they probably want the Codex, because in the Codex is the other crystal.
Yeah.
And Butterfinger goes, "Want me to rape him?" And I'm like, what? I rewound that because I was like, did he just say
he said it,
rape him? And then I'm like, why? Where is that? Why? Where is that joke? I don't understand. When they're like, okay, we're gonna roll this scene. Just say a couple things and say something funny. That's what you put in. I didn't get not. And I'm not saying it in terms of yes, I know it's not funny. It's but I'm just saying it's not funny on many levels, on all these levels. It just doesn't work. It's a bad joke, and I didn't understand why. I didn't understand. I just didn't get it.
There's nothing. It's just a bad line.
It is. It's a bad. It's a bad joke. It's a bad line, and for a variety of reasons that we're not going to get into. But it's just I just didn't understand why it was in there. And it was, and then, but to my point is Kit Kat's not there. He's gone. So he just disappears for 20, 25 minutes of the movie.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe he's off doing something else, but so I thought that was a little odd that he's not around. But again, it's tough to nitpick movies like this just because it's off the wall. Mm-hmm. And so you don't want it's just off the wall. It's off the wall. So it's probably off the wall to shoot. I mean, to put it together, the production. I know that production was a little troubled. Richard Grant wrote a biography about. It wasn't a biography. It was. Well, I guess it was about his work. It was about movies that he was in and productions. And one of the chapters is about Hudson Hawk, and he talks about how it was just a complete mess, and it wasn't. He doesn't like the movie. He hates the movie. When people bring it up to him, I don't know why. It's funny, but he's not a fan. It's too bad.
I'm not a huge fan of his character.
Academy Award nominee Richard Grant.
Listen, he's great. He plays a great villain, but in this movie, it's just too much. It's just too much. It doesn't make sense. Their plan is nonsense. Well, I get that it's a nonsense movie, but their plan is dumb.
I choose not to accept the assignment, Mr. Phelps. Put me in jail. Put me in, Tom.
Jail, you asshole. Our foot soldiers will blow your brains out. Bunny, ball.
I'll torture you so slowly, you'll think it's a career. I'll kill your friends, your family, and the bitch you took to the prom.
Fatty Joe Boyarsky? I can get you an address on that if you want.
I don't... They're kind of more skeevy than funny. Him and his
well, they're not fleshed out. They're just... Yeah. But again, like you said, if this movie was completely nuts, completely off the wall, not only maybe 50% to 60%, their characters, it doesn't matter. At that,
they would
you
fit
don't
in the
care.
World. Right.
Yeah, right. You don't care, but because there's some moments of normalcy that or they're not funny enough, it's probably something that pulls you out. Absolutely. Did you know that? Did you hear the term clock punk before? No. Okay, so researching this movie, clock punk is like steampunk. So there's different. There's different genres. So clock punk is Renaissance era science and technology based on pre-modern designs. So the fact that they're using Da Vinci's devices and his inventions for something modern to create goal, to achieve billions and for the world domination, that kind of stuff. That is clock punk. And there's a whole list of different styles of punk. There's There's Rocco Punk. No, I'm sorry. There's Rococo Punk, which is whimsical punk derivative that thrusts punk attitude into the late Baroque period. There's Ray Punk, which deals with scenarios, technologies, and beings or environments very different from everything that we know or what is possible here on Earth or by science. This is through Wikipedia. There's Now Punk, which is applied to contemporary fiction set in a time period. So like post-Cold War 1990s to present, like that kind of stuff. Like her fiction is like I would assume like Man in the High Castle would be Now Punk kind of thing, I think. Deco Punk, Atom Punk, Steel Punk, Cyber Prep, Elf Punk, Myth Punk, Sword Punk. There's all these things.
That's too much.
That's a lot of genres, a lot of subgenres.
All right, I gotta find my niche.
You gotta start doing Deco Punk.
Deco Punk. All right, Deco Punk film takes.
I guess like BioShock is Deco Punk or Dick Tracy.
I like both.
The Shadow.
The Shadow. I love The Shadow.
Tease.
Coming soon.
But back to this movie. Did you notice the reason why I brought up the Austin Powers reference was when he had the handcuffs on, and he undoes, and they put the code in. It makes that same noise that is from the Austin Powers. So the audio, the tune that happens with the electronic handcuffs that they put on Hudson when they put him on and when they undo him, that same audio is also in Austin Powers when he's in the car and he gets the message from Basil.
Oh, okay.
But that's from the movies Our Man Flint and In Like Flint, which were Coburn movies, which James Coburn was in. So and those are from the late 60s. Nice. So kind of like full circle.
Does he like the film? Did you?
I don't know, but I don't think he's passed away, so I don't know if
I would be interested to see what he thought. Well, I was like,
why
are you in this movie?
I'll tell you what Terry Clifford from the Chicago Tribune thought. He thought it was boring and banal, overwrought and undercooked. He thought Hudson Hawk was beyond bad. Like I was going through that was only one of the reviews that I wrote down, but I was going through the list of reviews. Like nobody liked this movie, and honestly, that's probably why I kind of liked it, because it was one of those movies that no one liked, but I watched and I was like, wow, I kind of like this. And it was like those movies that you find that are like hidden gems, or movies that you find that not that nobody liked them, but maybe nobody saw them. Mm-hmm. So it felt like it was one of those movies back then. I mean, let's see. I said I was like 19, 20. So the early 90s, after Hudson Hawk, early 90s, right around 93, 94. 94 is when Clerks came out. That's when you had indie cinema on the scene.
Yeah.
So that's when you could find movies that people either didn't like or forgot about. Yeah, a little shout out. So Hudson Hawk to me was one of those movies when we watched it. That's why I think I watched it a couple years after it came out.
Because you knew.
Well, no, because that I discovered it on like VHS or
gotcha, okay.
You know what I mean? Like
yeah.
That's what I'm saying.
That's cool.
Yeah, no, that's all. I was just trying to. So do you have anything else that you enjoy? Just the dialogue, the jokes,
the dialogue, the chemistry. Like I said, I like the singing aspect of it. I would really have liked the end scene to have been the 6-minute song.
No, they're not gonna do that.
Yeah, but that would have been tough.
So what do you say, Eddie? 2.5 minutes to save Anna, 3.5 minutes to save the world. 600, side by side. Dead.
Oh, we ain't got a barrel of money. We may be ragged and funny, but we'll travel along. Hit it, Eddie, singing a song. Side by side.
I like when Andy McDowell, when Anna gets drugged and it starts to wear off and she starts communing with the dolphins. That's probably the stupidest thing in the movie that I liked. When she started...
Yeah, that was pretty tough. Listen, I like this movie, but I remember when I watched that scene back then. Yeah, that was tough for me.
I thought that was pretty funny. I started laughing. It was like it's just so stupid.
Well, how about when Butterfinger goes in to tell him the update, and Bernhard shoots him with the arrows.
Oh,
and
he comes out.
He's like, "Hey, boss."
I think they might have betrayed us.
All right, so since I'm the one that's always like, I suggested this movie for us to do. I like this movie. I'll tell you the stuff that the only a couple of negatives that I had. Obviously, we already talked about this stupid joke, the rape joke that was just still don't understand. I'll still never understand to this day.
Mm-hmm.
Like I said before, a lot of the jokes are flat. They're not as funny as I remember. I think I agree with you. Like a lot of the riffing between Willis and Aiello works. Some of the stuff with Willis's, one-liners, they're okay. They're not great. They're kind of he's trying to. It's like John McClane almost. Like, you know what I mean? Like you when you hear him riffing, you think of McClane from Die Hard,
which is. Yeah, I mean that's kind of like his. That's probably where he got.
Well, they're doing a
send
up. They're definitely doing a send up of action movies, of these type of movies,
of the smarmy hero. Yeah,
right. But they're this movie is trying to do a lot of different. It's trying to do a send up of a lot of different genres, of a lot of a different. They're trying to make it like, the whole idea of having that, like I talked about the audio from Our Man Flint and like Flint, all that stuff. Like they're trying to do movies like that. Like they're trying to do like they're almost trying to do Austin Powers, but they didn't go far enough.
Right.
You know what I mean? They're trying to do that kind of farcical spoof of those type of action movies, and he's trying to obviously, play off of his image at this point of an action star.
Yeah.
So I mean, So I get that. Michael Lehman as a director is probably not the best choice for them to do that, because he's more. I mean, this is so broad that it's not really his cup of tea.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, Heathers is completely different in terms of tone and in terms of storytelling. And if you haven't seen Heathers, you should. It's really good. So. Lehman's probably not the best choice, but I mean, I'm sure this was TriStar put him in. I'm sure it was something like the studio. So yeah, so some of the jokes land flat. I didn't think the candy bar crew were spies. I don't think they were used enough. Like the whole plot of the whole idea that because it would go Aiello to the Mario Brothers. Oh, I'm sorry, to the corrupt cop, to the Mario Brothers, to the spies, the CIA. To the megalomaniacs. It's like you never why are they all together? Like there's no reason why they're all together.
There's no connection.
Right. I mean, even in I know we keep saying Austin Powers movies, but even in those type of movies, there is some sort of connect. So there's no thread line between none of the bad guys. That's just they're all in it together. Wait, they're not. They're double crossing each other. Wait, never mind. Mario Brothers are dead.
I mean, the Butler kills the one of the mob guys right off the bat at the start.
He kills the cop. He kills the dirty cop.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
It's like, all right.
Yeah.
When I watched it, I was like, why would you? So, who are you doing business with? That's bad business.
Yeah.
That's stupid even in a comedy.
Yeah. And I just think it's just not, even in the Naked Gun movies, all the Naked Gun movies, they're ridiculous. They're hilarious.
Right.
The Naked Gun movies, the Top Gun, Airplane, they're all off the wall. They're all zany. They're all just, the comedy is over the top. But at its core, they're still
a cohesive plot,
a solid plot, a solid story that makes sense. That because you do need that in a movie like that. You do need something that the audience can. It's almost like the human body. You don't see the skeleton. You don't see every single rib. You don't see every single bone in your hand. But in terms of what's on the outside, in terms of how zany you make everything on the outside with tattoos and whatever, you still, not that tattoos are zany, but you still have the basic of everybody else, a skeleton, the same kind of design.
Right.
That is a weird analogy. But whatever. You still, in any kind of story, you still need that basic story, the bones of your story, the foundation of your story, whatever analogy you want to use for the audience to subconsciously still latch onto so that they can go on this ride with you. And I will agree that Hudson Hawk doesn't have that.
Right.
Because it's like a series of jokes and one-liners. And yes, there's this loose plot line of Hawk is asked to steal 3 things. Doesn't even steal.
There's no plot.
Right. doesn't even steal the third one, and which is unfortunate because they could have done that.
Yeah.
So it's not there, and I think because that's not there, that subconsciously takes people out of the rest of the movie. And while I can sit here and say that I laugh still at the same jokes and I enjoy the riff, I think we actually like it the same way. Because I'm not, like I said to start, I'm not going to sit here and tell you that it's the greatest thing I've ever seen. Because the Naked Gun movies, Naked Gun, Airplane, Naked Gun, Top Secret, the first Hot Shots. Hot Shots Part 2 was good too. Like those are great. I can laugh all the time. I can laugh all throughout that.
Hot Shots isn't as zany as maybe
Well, I'm not,
Naked Gun, but
I'm saying in terms of like they're in a cloud above Hudson Hawk,
right?
And I think that Hudson Hawk should have aspired to what you were saying. Should have aspired to that, but it misses. It doesn't. And I think all the stories that I have talked about have those bones of a story in there.
Yeah.
And Hudson Hawk really doesn't.
It doesn't even go that zany. It goes back to being more serious, and then zany. Like one thing I really, really didn't like is when he's fighting with. Man, I'm really bad with characters. That's when he's fighting with Kaplan at the end at the castle. And Kaplan starts kicking him back and forth, and then he just kind of like wobbles, like like he goes,
but he's
hit.
Continuing the motion. He's doing like it's almost like a cartoon.
It's so cartoony, and that's when does that when have we established that this is the universe?
Right.
Never. It just doesn't make sense, and the beginning doesn't match up with the end.
Well, he's doing that cartoon thing when like because he's kicking him, he's kicking him, and then he's hitting him, right? He's going up and down, and then he stops, and he continues to go up and down. It's almost like in like Bugs Bunny and
it's very Looney Tunes.
Yeah, exactly. When Bugs Bunny's like, yes you are, no I didn't, yes you are, no I didn't, no you didn't, yes I did, like that kind of thing. Yeah. Doing it one time for a 5-minute clip during the movie doesn't have the same impact unless you've been doing that. Unless not that joke particular, but jokes like that throughout.
And not established that is my universe. Especially at the start of the movie is far more serious than how it gets once they reach Italy, I think.
Yeah.
I think they have this kind of silly comedy thread that works. It's a more unbelievable universe. Like when they're at the bar and Frank Stallone's character, who's doing his best Sylvester Stallone.
Frank!
I watched and was like, wow, Frank looks exactly like Sylvester in this. It was probably what they were going with. But when he shoots the cup in Bruce Willis's hand and in the middle of a crowded bar.
I know. Nobody says anything.
And then he goes over to him. It's like, all right, this is the universe.
Absolutely.
And then the robbery, they're on skateboards. He goes through the spinning door while the other cop's on the other end. Like, okay, that's the universe. And then, nope, it's Looney Tunes.
Yeah.
It just doesn't work.
Well, it's this movie is almost like we're in the back office working, which we will be soon. The Avengers Endgame, when we're sold out and we're having a laugh in the back and everyone's just cracking jokes, or someone's like, oh, what would be funny? This would be funny. Oh, what would be funny? And like some of them are gonna work, some of them aren't. Some of them are funny, some of them aren't. But eventually, everything will peter back to work. Like that's almost the equivalent of what you're watching in Hudson Hawk. Like, I can just see them coming on set and be like, "Oh, we should try this. We think this is funny."
Yeah, they never cleaned it up.
Right, but when you have your star is the producer, when your star created the story, it's his story, it's his project. So you're not going to be able to control that a lot, And I know you have a thing about Mr. Willis, so I know you're down on him.
He broke my heart. I've just heard not great things lately,
which is unfortunate. And it's when you're watching, it's tough to hear about people you like as actors, to hear different stories of different things, and like from people on set. And you don't. Some of them are true, some of them probably aren't true. But just in terms of just being a jerk or something like that, whatever.
Yeah.
When you're a big time. I mean, he's a huge star. So people are gonna take shots regardless. So you have to take that with a grain of salt, but I understand what you're saying. It's tough to watch somebody do work on screen that you love, but then you hear different stories about them, and they're not like nice guys, maybe.
Yeah.
But it's tough to filter that out.
But this is This is still hair Bruce Willis. So I think still hair Bruce Willis is a different person. So I still see him as maybe a nicer guy back then. I mean, doing a movie like this that's so zany, like, is something he would never do today, I don't think.
A movie like this?
A movie like this.
Well, when you're older, you're not going to want... Yeah, no, I hear you. This is a movie that he did with his best friend.
Right.
And it was a movie that they came up with 10 years earlier when they were nobodies and nobody knew them.
Look at the way he even acts and behaves, and he puts himself out there. That's my one of the things about at the end, my end note, I tried to find like a couple of statements about what I liked about the movie, because I don't like this movie. That it plays with an unapologetic exuberance that you don't see very often in film anymore, and you never see from him. I mean, look at Glass. Look at what was the one where he's the dad with the gun? Death
Wish, the Death Wish remake.
Yes, Death Wish remake. It's like that kind of like.
Well, that's that character.
Well,
I got to understand what you're saying.
What he plays.
Okay, well, I'll tell you, you're looking for a movie where he's.
I'm looking for
he's like a Hudson Hawk style role
lately.
Now, yeah, no, there's probably I'm going through his thing right now. No,
he doesn't put himself out there anymore, and
he doesn't need to.
I know he doesn't need to. Then don't do stuff.
Stop working. Well, I mean, he's in. It
doesn't seem like he enjoys himself anymore, and he absolutely looks like he enjoyed himself doing that, and stuff like The Fifth Element, and even some of the earlier Die Hards. Like now he just goes through the motions.
But well, that could also be indicative, and not just to him, but to older actors now. That could be also indicative of the way Hollywood is, the way. Maybe they're just tired of the BS. Maybe they're just tired, like a lot of the older actors, like Tommy Lee Jones, and who is always cranky, and so like you hear about stuff like that. Maybe they're just tired of the constant BS that comes with being a movie star, and they're just they've been around, they've paid their dues, they don't need to put up with that shit anymore, so they're not going to.
But what I don't understand is when you're as big as I understand some actors, they're working actors, they have to, they don't. Like Bruce Willis doesn't need to work anymore.
Oh, yes, that's probably true.
If he's doing it at this point, it's because he enjoys doing it. So why not do more Hudson Hawk type stuff? I'm not don't do Hudson Hawk, or do it. Maybe you can really refine it. But do something you love. Put the money out there to produce and create your own content. I mean, that's the only thing holding us back is the cash.
I always tell Adrian that we still need a bag man. That's it.
Yeah.
We just need a guy with a bag of cash to make stuff. I get it. I mean,
so if you're tired of the BS, go make your own BS.
Absolutely. So I'll give you a movie that he was in that in 2012 he did. I just lost it. Moonrise Kingdom. Do you remember that?
That was 2012.
That was 2012 with Wes Anderson.
Yeah.
And
I feel like that was
That's a decent role.
Maybe he needs somebody to be like, hey, movies can be fun again. Maybe he needs that. And he's just going through the motion of like these cookie cutter direct to DVD.
Hey man, the money's good. The money's good. He's how old is he now?
He's got to be like probably 60s, early 60s, mid 60s.
Hang on, I'm looking. I'm doing the math in my head. He's 63, I think.
That's not too old.
Yeah, but you also his career started. He's been working nonstop since 19. Well, that doesn't count. Okay, 1980 is his first. That's uncredited. You said Miami Vice, 1984.
Okay, yeah.
So let's be clear, 1984. I'm sure he didn't go to New York City to be a star until like the early 70s. So he probably was, paying his dues then.
Right.
He's been working nonstop since 1984. I mean, I get what you're saying. It's just I'm not. My problem is that I'm not 63. I don't know how to feel that way.
Right.
You know what I mean? You know what I'm saying? Like I don't know how I will feel in 20 years. I know how I don't want to feel, but I don't know like what my perspective will be. He's
decades away from us, so
absolutely
right. He's got a lot more experience in something maybe we would like to know more about and be more a part of, but we're not. And so he's embroiled in it.
So to take it back to Hudson Hawk, you love the fact that he's having fun in this movie. You want him to, you wish that you could see him having fun in movies now, like he did back then. Like you're okay with a miss like Hudson Hawk because like it's enjoyable.
He's the Bruce Willis I grew up.
Okay,
like, loving.
okay.
Like, John McClane growing up was one of my favorite heroes.
Aw.
I would rewatch Die Hard
He
constantly.
killed a lot of people, Mike.
They deserved to die. They were all Gruber henchmen.
All of them. I mean, some of them. Maybe some guys had families. They had a paycheck to do.
I'm not the monster. I only work for monsters.
No fucking shit, lady. It sound like I'm ordering a pizza. No, that's really traumatizing to that woman. Maybe she probably hung up the phone. She's like, this guy's just yelling at me. I'm doing my job like I'm supposed to, and this guy's yelling at me about pizza.
What a jerk.
So I hear you. I get that. So okay? So that's fair.
Yeah.
That's absolutely fair. Now he doesn't have to do any of that because F you. Who are you? You know what I mean?
Well,
Like, yeah,
I get
right.
that. I get that. Absolutely. I mean, if he's listening to this podcast, I mean, that's friggin'
Woo!
awesome.
He's not. I'll tell you right now.
But
he's
also,
not.
if he wants to come tell
You've
me
been
off
blackballed. Now you've been blackballed.
Yeah, exactly. Bruce, come down. Tell me off. Explain to me why you're grumpy.
I don't need Bruce Willis in my house because that's where we are right now to tell you off. I don't need that. Okay, it's got too many dogs here.
Maybe he likes dogs.
All right, so I think we're of the same mind with this movie. I mean, I know I sell it up to you that it's funny, but you're laughing at the same jokes I'm laughing at.
Right. I think that's not enough for me. I don't
Okay.
think I like it as much. I think you can forgive the stuff that I really don't like about this movie more than I can. But yes, we both like the stuff that is funny is funny. It's not like it's devoid of any comedy.
So how about because we always ask this at the end, is this something that you would suggest to somebody to watch, or if you're looking for a movie to watch on a Saturday night and you hear that that's the thing, because this is not like a movie where you're saying to somebody, you've never seen this movie, this is like the best movie I've ever seen. Like, you know what I mean? Like
this is different than any of the other forgotten cinemas.
This is, I know, because this is a fun movie.
It's fun, but it's really bad. It's
okay. Well, how about?
All right, I got it. Do you like Bruce Willis?
Yes.
Do you like old Bruce Willis? Watch this movie because this is Bruce Willis. It seems like this is Bruce Willis having the time of his life making a movie, which you will probably never see again, and I don't think you've ever seen before. Like, this is just him really, really enjoying himself.
Well, also
with his friends, and it works.
Yeah.
That works.
There you go. So yes. So I'm gonna mark that down that you like it. That's gonna be a check that you like it.
Bruce, I liked your movie.
There you go. Tuck you into that shit. Yeah.
I was thinking though, because you brought up like could it be made again now or something like that.
Right.
I would be interested to see maybe a Hudson Hawk 2 or a remake or a reboot or something like that to see if, get Bruce Willis back. Could he refine it? Would he have known what he would have done differently to see if he could take what he has kind of started to establish and make it into something better?
I don't know. I mean, I don't think he would because he's basically taken over the Die Hard franchise in terms of making that his own, like because they're doing McClane now.
Right.
So, I mean, I think that's the character that he's kind of
latched onto.
I mean, he will always be that character.
Well, it's like Harrison Ford and Indiana Jones. That's the one guy he.
Well, I mean, yeah, I agree.
latched onto.
Well, Jack Ryan.
Well, Han Solo, but he's more.
That's true too. Yeah, that's true.
He's a bunch of characters, but that's the one he chose.
Indiana Jones. Yeah, well, that's the best one.
That's
That's the best one to choose.
Right.
Because let's be honest. I mean, he's better than Indiana Jones than he is Han Solo.
I don't disagree.
There you go. What about when he did when Willis did the whole 9 yards? Right, it was a whole 9 yards.
Whole 9 yards.
And then he did the whole 10 yards. I mean, that was early 2000s. That was 2000, and then whole 10 yards 2004. So that was kind of,
I like Whole 9 yards, and his character in Fifth Element has a lot of the goofiness that Hudson has.
Yeah. He's not really he's wisecracking, but he's not. He's more of the straight man than he is the comedy guy. Okay, so I would suggest it. I would tell people to watch it.
I know you did.
Exactly. but that's I mean, I think it's important to understand that with the movies that we do here, that it's not just about movies that are really good that people forgot were really good. It's movies that had an impact, movies that have some sort of impact, or movies that, for whatever reason, worked, clicked. I will agree with you that maybe 60% of this movie is what I like about it. There's stuff that is outdated. There's stuff that whatever, okay, it's fine. That joke's not as funny as maybe I thought it was, or as they think it was. So yeah, I agree with you there, but it's still enough for me to watch it, just because. And honestly, it's because it's an hour and 40 minutes, hour and 35 minutes. It's a nice quick movie, so it's not like I'm invested in a 2.5 hour movie.
It's true.
So I mean, in that regard, it's one of these movies. You know what this movie's like? So on a Saturday night, you get your friends over, and you want to do a double feature. That's the perfect movie to finish the double feature, because you don't want to. When you do a double feature, you don't want to do anything that's going to put you to sleep at the end. You want the drama or the serious film, the thriller, to be the first movie. If you're doing a double feature, the second movie, you want it to be fun or a comedy or an action, something that will keep people up.
Yeah.
I think, granted, now I think this would be the second movie in a double feature that you would want to do. Now I just realized that I've basically told everyone I'm a big nerd. Unless my Saturday night would be a double feature of movies, but I don't care because
our podcast is Forgotten Cinema, so
it is
Cinemaphile, so
Forgotten Nerds. Yeah. So again, like I said, you like this movie. No, don't shake your head. You like this movie.
I enjoy this movie, but it's a bad movie.
But you would recommend it.
For very specific reasons.
Hey man, my name is Joe Blow, and I like Bruce Willis, but I like early '90s Bruce Willis. Well, I got a movie for you.
I like post Sixth Sense Bruce Willis. Well,
not only do I like early '90s Bruce Willis, I'm a big Danny Aiello fan.
Well, if you're a Danny Aiello fan, absolutely watch Hudson Hawk.
Yeah, absolutely. And then you should watch Do the Right Thing, because he's really great in that. Which I found out that my wife never seen Do the Right Thing before. Shame on her.
Leave her.
No, I can't. Come on. Damn you. All right, so we're at the section where we like to plug stuff.
All right.
You go first.
Well, let's plug this. Forgotten Cinema.
Hey, yo.
So
what's up?
If this is your first time listening, why don't you give us a like on whatever streaming service you are listening to us on, and subscribe.
Or
subscribe
share.
Everywhere. Share it to everyone. Tell your friends. Forgotten Cinema. Follow us on Twitter, on Instagram.
Check out our website, ForgottenCinemaPodcast.com. And you can get links to, if you don't really just want to go search for the podcast on iTunes or wherever, we post each episode on there. We post the links to go get them.
So that was my Forgotten Cinema plug on Forgotten Cinema.
Let me go me first. Because you got like 18 podcasts to plug. So I guess primarily, I like I said before, I have 2 books out right now: Adam Parker and the Radioactive Scout, and Adam Parker and the High School Bully. Yes, they are part of the same mystery series that is called the Adam Parker Mystery Series. These are available at Amazon as ebook or paperback. And I'm hoping to have a new book soon, but I'm writing it now, so we'll see.
Ooh.
Well, I mean, I'm still writing it.
All right. So
it's your turn now. That means when I pause and I stop talking, that means it's your turn.
Is that what it means?
Yes. Yeah.
All right. I've got 2 other podcasts you can listen to right now. I've got Two Player Bros, a podcast by 2 brothers who play way too many video games, where you can listen to myself and my brother Alex, where we talk about all things video game, news, reviews, previews. We talk about some old games we've been playing, and upcoming video game tech. So if you like listening to me talk, and you prefer me talking about video games, there's that. And then I've also got Crackin' One Open with Mike and Elise, where my fiance Elise and I crack open a local craft beer, talk about what's in it, give you a little history on the brewery, and then, while we're sipping on that brew, we talk about the latest pop culture news and reviews. So
are you actually slurping in the mic?
Every once in a while, like as a transition, I'll be like, I gotta take a sip of mine.
Wow, classic.
But
nice.
The fact that you're asking me that means you haven't listened to the episodes I've got out.
Listen, I got a lot of things I got going on. Did I mention I was writing a book? I will listen. I apologize.
So that's Two Player Bros and Crackin' One Open with Mike and Elise, and that's what I got going on for now. Unless Bruce, you want to talk about the Hudson Hawk remake? I can learn to love it.
All right. Well, so thanks for listening. We'll See you next episode. I'm Mike Field.
I'm Mike Butler.
And this has been Forgotten Cinema.
I must speak with the dolphins now.
Just shoot her. Anybody?